Welcome to NarrativeNook audio tales where enchanted stories come to life. If you enjoy our stories, please subscribe, like and share to support our channel. Enjoy listening.
It was her first photograph with the 3 children. More importantly, it was after learning that Estella was the baby whom she had thought died prematurely. Thank you, she said gratefully. Looking at her trembling hands, Lucian pulled her into his arms. If you want to thank me, then reconsider my proposal. I was lying to you. I can't wait much longer. 6 years is long enough. I don't want to keep waiting. Roxanne lowered her head without answering. Her eyes brimmed with guilt. Having detected something in her silence, Lucian released her with a sigh and gave her a kind smile. It's all right. I can wait a little longer. Besides, I'm sure you wouldn't bear to keep me waiting too long. Roxanne looked away, not knowing what to say. Meanwhile, having tired themselves out, the children came running over to the adults. Mommy, what were you looking at earlier? Benny could tell that something was wrong between their parents, so he hurriedly tried to change the subject. Clutching Roxanne's arm, he asked to see the phone in her hand. Heaving a sigh of relief, she crouched beside him to show him the photographs. Initially only intending to help his father out of the predicament, Benny was pleasantly surprised to learn how nice the photographs his father had taken looked and was momentarily mesmerized. Wow, Mommy. You and Essie look so much alike when you smile. He found the photograph of his mother and sister smiling. We've never noticed this. Having also just seen that photograph, Roxanne felt emotional. Estella leaned closer curiously to Benny and gazed at the photograph. A moment later, she arrived at a verdict. Mommy is pretty. Benny's cheeks puffed with pride. Of course. Mr. Farwell took it. He has never taken a bad picture of Mommy. He then turned around and pretended to comfort his sister. You are still young. When you grow up, you will be as pretty as Mommy. Estella turned to Roxanne beside her at those words. At the thought of how beautiful she would be in a few years, she smiled so broadly that her eyes turned to slits. Roxanne caressed the children's heads as she said to Lucian, the children must be hungry. Let's call it a day and find some place to eat. Then, she turned and sought the children's opinion. As the restaurant in which Lucian had made reservations was not far from the beach, it took less than 20 minutes for the family to arrive. Roxanne helped the children out of the car, and Lucian went off in search of a parking spot. Is that Roxanne? I can't believe she dares to show herself. An unfamiliar voice rang out. Roxanne turned in the direction of the remark in confusion. 2 figures who had emerged from the restaurant were openly pointing and casting strange looks at the 3 children beside her. Those 2 are her kids, aren't they? And the little girl beside them is the heiress of the Farwell family. The pair gossiped as they walked, pretending she did not exist. How trusting of Mr. Farwell to leave his kid in her care. Roxanne heard their words clearly, and a strange sense of unease surfaced within her. For some reason, she noticed how everybody they passed by was giving them the same strange look. Hearing those words as well, Archie and Benny noticed the manner in which the strangers looked at them. Turning to his brother in a panic, Benny feared that the rumor mill on the internet was causing them trouble again. Otherwise, why would these people look at us like that? Archie's expression grew taut, like a wary little fox. With several noiseless steps forward, he stood before Roxanne. Upon his arrival, Lucian noticed the hostile and wary looks on the 4 of them. What's going on? He asked with a frown. Roxanne became inexplicably calm at his arrival and shook her head. Nothing. Let's head inside. I am likely overthinking. After all, these people don't know me. There's no reason for them to hate me. The pair led the children into the restaurant. Perhaps because of Lucian's presence, the ones who had given them strange looks earlier averted their gazes. Roxanne heaved a secret sigh of relief. To divert his attention, she brought up the problem with Estella's accommodations. Can Essie stay with me for another 2 days? Estella turned her large, unblinking eyes to her father. I would like to stay with Mommy, Daddy. Lucian caressed the child's head. Sure, but you must listen to Mommy and not give her any trouble. Estella nodded obediently in response, beaming. Roxanne put on a disapproving face. It's not the same as it used to be. Essie is my daughter. She can never trouble me. Besides, I have never seen the child as being troublesome. Aware of the error in his words, he gave an apologetic smile. My mistake. Initially only intending to make one grumbling remark, Roxanne became surprised at the speed with which he admitted his mistake and instinctively laughed alongside him. His eyes, however, darkened. From the moment they sat down, Lucian had sensed the other patrons occasionally looking at them with what seemed to him to be disgust in their eyes. Whipping around suddenly, he caught the neighboring patrons before they could retract their gazes. The other customers shuddered when their eyes met, but it was too late to look away. What are you looking at? Scowling, Lucian rose to stand before the man at the neighboring table, who waved his hand guiltily. Nothing. I wasn't looking at anything. I know nothing. Lucian narrowed his eyes dangerously as he scanned the inside of the restaurant. When the others saw Lucian had gone looking for the man to settle the scores, they retracted their gazes guiltily. Meanwhile, the man was so scared he did not dare breathe loudly in front of Lucian. Truth was, the man had no ill intentions. He had only read the discussion on the internet and gotten curious about their relationship. In fact, when the man saw Roxanne bringing along two sons of unknown origins, he figured Lucian would have some grudge against her. To the man's astonishment, Lucian seemed to be truly in love with Roxanne. Moreover, Roxanne did not look like a crafty person as described in the rumors. Lucian suddenly thought of something and warned the man, I don't care what you think, but you'd better keep your eyes to yourself and not interrupt our meal. After that, he instructed the waiter to move them to a different private room. What happened? Uneasiness swirled within Roxanne's heart. Flashing an assuring smile, Lucian said, Nothing. Carry on with your meal. I need to make a call. With that, he exited the private room and called Caden. The call was connected instantly. Mr. Farwell. Lucian's expression was stern, and he exuded a gloomy aura. How's the public opinion on the internet now? Caden sounded rather guilty. The public opinion is one-sided, and they're not in Mrs. Farwell's favor. I've already assigned someone to handle it and trace the source. The situation had stabilized earlier, but for some unknown reason, negative comments began to appear. Caden had dealt with it in a panic. He did not dare to call Lucian, for he knew the latter was with Roxanne. However, he never expected Lucian to make the call instead. Lucian's expression grew darker. How long has it been? Why didn't you tell me about it sooner? Caden lowered his head, not daring to answer. In the meantime, Roxanne, too, received a call from Linda in the private room. Linda had originally been abroad, but ever since something happened to Colby, Roxanne had told her to return because she feared she could not handle all the work on her own. They had been keeping in touch recently because of the research institute. Seeing Linda calling her out of the blue, Roxanne naturally thought it was related to the research institute, so she answered it without hesitation. Dr. Jarvis, have you offended anyone? Linda's words puzzled Roxanne. Did something happen? Linda briefly recounted the discussion on the internet and summarized by saying, I think they're targeting you on purpose. Someone's slandering you behind your back. Roxanne's eyes dimmed when she learned about what the internet was saying about her. She could roughly guess who the person behind all of it was. Apart from Aubrey, no one would call Roxanne a homewrecker. Linda continued, At first, I thought I shouldn't get involved since this is your private matter, but this is affecting the Research Institute's reputation. We know it's someone slandering you, but the others don't. Many collaborators have requested to cancel the contract because of this. They're afraid your reputation might collapse and affect them. Roxanne felt her heart sink when she heard that. I got it. Indeed, This one's caused by my private matters. Negotiate with them about the cancellation of the contract. I'll do my best to deal with the matters on my end." Linda hummed in agreement. By the time Lucian hung up and returned to the private room, he saw Roxanne lowering her head and reading something on her phone. The scowl on her face made him frown. He figured she was reading the contents of the discussion. "Do you know about it already?" Lucian asked as he walked over to sit beside her. Roxanne did not look up. She kept her eyes fixed on the post that was constantly updating with insulting comments targeted at her. There were also comments that speculated the background of Archie and Benny. Roxanne could bear the insults hurled at her. However, she could not help but feel bad when her children were dragged into the mess as well. "Mommy, what's wrong?" Estella was oblivious to the discussions online. She inched over to show her concern. It was then that Roxanne snapped back to her senses. Putting away her phone hastily, she flashed Estella a smile as if nothing happened. It's nothing. Eat up." With that, she cast Archie and Benny an apologetic glance. The boys had guessed there were changes to the discussions on the internet. They surmised the reason Roxanne was giving them that look was that they had been dragged into the discussion as well. Not wanting to make Roxanne worry, they feigned ignorance and smiled meekly. At the same time, Benny secretly clenched his fists. That evil woman must have done something again. "I'll teach her a lesson once I get back to my laptop." "I'm sorry. It's my fault for not dealing with it properly." Lucian gazed into the woman's eyes with worry. Before entering the private room, he had read the discussions online, which were filled with insulting and degrading comments toward Roxanne. Immediately, he knew she would be upset if she read them. Glancing at the children, Roxanne whispered to Lucian, "Let's talk after the meal." She did not want the children to learn of the matter. Understanding her intention, Lucian nodded with a heavy heart and said nothing else. Thankfully, they had a peaceful meal after changing private rooms. Archie and Benny were worried about the discussion that they lost the mood to fool around. They simply ate their food in silence. The meal was a gloomy one. Once they finished the food, Lucian drove them straight to Roxanne's house. Roxanne stayed downstairs with Lucian after telling the children to go upstairs first. "I'm sorry, I didn't deal with this properly. I didn't expect Aubrey to pull such a move after that lesson." Lucian's heart was filled with fury. He hated himself for not dealing with Aubrey using his methods. Lowering her head, Roxanne uttered, "I'm not bothered about what they're saying about me. This isn't the first time, anyway. I just hope that Archie and Benny won't get dragged into this mess. They have nothing to do with this." Lucian felt a twinge in his heart. I know. I'll settle this as quickly as possible." When he finished his sentence, he gave her a conflicted look and asked cautiously, "It's been so long. Can you tell me who Archie and Benny's father is already?" Every time he pictured Roxanne with another man, he could not help but feel mad, not to mention she had children with another man. Regardless, all he wanted at that moment was to keep her by his side. No matter how much he cared about the past, he had no choice but to feign indifference. After all, the boys shared Roxanne's blood, too. Lucian would still treat Archie and Benny as if they were his own. Still, he could not help but feel curious about their father's identity. Panic spread over Roxanne's face when she heard the question. Archie and Benny's father was right in front of her, yet she did not know how to answer him. Lucian understood her intention when there was no answer from her after a long time. It's okay if you don't want to tell me. I'll look into it myself. I'll find out, eventually." Don't." Roxanne frowned. Lucian's expression darkened. "I can't even look into him? Just who is this man?" Roxanne kept her head low as a myriad of emotions swam in her eyes. I'll tell you when the time comes. Just don't look into it. I should be the one to tell him about the boys' identities." She did not dare to imagine what Lucian's reaction would be if she let him dig into it. Lucian fell silent for a long time. Seeing how anxious she looked, he agreed, Okay. I'll wait for you to tell me." He had prepared himself for the worst, thinking maybe Roxanne had been taken advantage of in the past. He believed in her feelings for him 6 years ago and that she would not lose them so soon. She might have been forced to bear those boys. The thought of it flooded his heart with more remorse. Oblivious to his thoughts, Roxanne could only flash him a grateful smile. Lucian could not bear to see her feeling so worried. He got up and said, Take good care of the children. I'll settle the discussion on the internet. Don't worry. I couldn't protect her for the past 6 years. Now that we're finally together, I won't let anyone harm her again." With that, he spun on his heel and left. After watching him leave, Roxanne made her way upstairs. The children were hanging out in Archie and Benny's bedroom. Ignored by the boys, Estella played with the toys on the side. Archie and Benny huddled together in front of the computer, reading the discussion that had changed its direction. Mommy's not like that. It must be that evil woman's doing. I'm going to teach her a lesson." Benny balled his fists furiously. He placed the laptop on his thighs. He was about to begin his counterattack when suddenly a knock sounded on the door. The boys exchanged glances. Immediately, they shut the laptop and opened the door with a smile. Standing at the door, Roxanne asked, There's something wrong with the laptop in the study. Can I borrow yours for a while?" The children were getting smarter. They would notice the uproar on the internet as long as they used the laptop. Roxanne did not wish for them to be involved, so the only solution she could think of was to confiscate their laptop for the time being. Naturally, the boys guessed her true intention and were reluctant to give her the device. "We haven't even taught that evil woman a lesson for bullying Mommy." However, as soon as they recalled Lucian's promise at the restaurant, they felt a wave of relief. Daddy won't let that evil woman off. At that thought, the children finally gave in. Okay. I was browsing the stock market just now, though. Give me a moment, Mommy," said Archie nonchalantly. He then returned to open the laptop and cleared the browsing history before handing it to Roxanne. Roxanne secretly sighed with relief upon receiving the laptop. I'll get busy, then. Take care of Essie, okay?" The boys nodded obediently. When they saw Roxanne entering the study with the laptop, their faces promptly fell. "Hopefully Daddy can help us teach that evil woman a lesson." Aubrey's joy did not last long, for the tables had turned that evening. Farwell Group made an announcement again, clearly stating the reason for the annulment of the engagement between the Farwell and the Pearson family. At the same time, it also contained a warning for the people who contributed to the discussions on the internet. One specific line in the announcement caused an uproar on the internet. It read, "The Farwell and the Pearson family have annulled their engagement due to Aubrey's personality that is unfit for the role of Mr. Lucian Farwell's wife." Someone wrote, "The Farwell family must have toned down their words. They're a big family, after all. I bet Aubrey has done something disgusting behind their backs. Farwell Group is already sparing her dignity by saying it's a personality problem." Another wrote, "So, who's the problem now? Aubrey or Roxanne?" Someone replied, "Do you still need to ask that? Didn't Farwell Group explain everything clearly in the announcement? It's Aubrey, of course. Who knows? She might even be the one who orchestrated the entire discussion on the internet." Suddenly, the netizens began discussing among themselves. Although the public was still curious about Archie's and Benny's identity, no one dared to bring it up after reading Farwell Group's warning. Roxanne secretly breathed a sigh of relief when she saw things had finally calmed on the internet. Even though Lucian had promised her he would settle that matter, she did not think it would be done so quickly. Moreover, Lucian had filed lawsuits in the name of Farwell Group against those who slandered her. That was basically announcing their relationship to the public. A peculiar feeling arose within Roxanne when she thought about that. Since the matter had already been resolved, there was no reason for her to keep the boys' laptop, so she returned it to them. After they got their laptop back, The first thing the children did was check the discussion on the internet. Thanks to Lucian's warning, the disrespectful posts toward Roxanne had been completely removed from the internet. Farwell Group's latest announcement was at the top of the trending list. Everyone who clicked on it could see the announcement. Naturally, the boys discovered it as well. First, the children noticed Lucian had indirectly called Aubrey out for having a poor personality, which made them applaud him. As expected, this has to be handled by Daddy. The effects wouldn't be the same if we took care of it. Next, they learned that Lucian was gathering evidence and filing lawsuits against those involved in the discussions. Upon reading that, they naturally took up the responsibility to help collect evidence. In less than half an hour, the children compiled all the evidence in a compressed folder and sent it to Farwell Group anonymously. They would not let those netizens who insulted Roxanne off the hook. One of the most crucial pieces of evidence in the compressed folder was the proof of Aubrey transferring money to a media company. It was only 50 million. The remaining balance of 10 million had yet to be transferred. Meanwhile, Caden reported to Lucian the moment he received the compressed folder. The evidence of Aubrey bribing the media company made Lucian's blood boil. In fact, he had guessed the same thing and had assigned someone to look into it. Never did he expect someone to find the evidence faster than them. Taking in Lucian's infuriated look, Caden prompted carefully, "Je Mr. Farwell. Since this company loves money so much that they'd go against Farwell Group for it, we'll make them pay with all the money they earned," Lucian said coldly. Caden nodded grimly. Of course, he knew Lucian was not just referring to the 50 million Aubrey transferred. It also included every cent the company had earned ever since its establishment. How dare they bully Mrs. Farwell? That company won't be able to survive in the industry anymore. Just as Caden was about to leave to execute his orders, Lucian's voice rang out behind him again. Where did the compressed folder come from?" Lucian eyed the computer screen. Everything in the folder was more detailed than the evidence gathered by Farwell Group's technicians. It even contained the personal information of the users who made the worst insults. If Farwell Group were to file lawsuits, every single one of them would surely have to face punishment by the law. Lucian's curiosity was amplified when he recalled the same person had taken action twice. Whether the anonymous person was simply targeting Aubrey or doing it to protect Roxanne, Lucian had no clue. If it were the latter, then he had to find the person. Caden looked conflicted when he heard Lucian's question. Are the technicians still looking into it? This person must be the same one who posted the discussion this morning. Alas, he did not know who that person was. Farwell Group's technicians were among the best in the country. The supervisor of the department, especially, ranked third on the list of hackers. Still, he could not find the identity of the anonymous person. While Caden was feeling curious about the anonymous person's identity, he felt nervous for Lucian too. After all, Roxanne had disappeared for 6 years. Now that she had returned, many outstanding men had begun appearing in her life. I wonder what this hacker's relationship with Mrs. Farwell is. Don't tell me he's going to fight with Mr. Farwell for Mrs. Farwell's heart. Lucian's expression grew darker as he ordered frostily, file lawsuits against everyone listed in the name list. One more thing, find the anonymous person no matter what it takes. Even if Lucian did not care about Roxanne's relationship with the anonymous person, he still wanted to find out the reason for the latter to make such a move. After all, the person had great hacking skills. Who knows? He might attack Farwell Group one day if I let such an elusive hacker roam freely. Caden acknowledged it at once. Understood. I'll execute your orders right away. With that, he left hastily. That night, Ocean Media officially announced its bankruptcy. At the same time, Samuel received a call from Lucian. Thinking Sonia had actually begged Lucian for mercy on their behalf, Samuel answered it with anticipation. "Oh, what's the matter, Lucian?" Lucian's voice was laced with anger as he warned, Mr. Pearson, you'd better watch your daughter and stop letting her do stupid things that test my limits. If not, Pearson Group will face worse consequences than this. The anticipation within Samuel was instantly doused by Lucian's words. Horrified, he asked, what did Aubrey do? Please tell me the details. I promise I'll teach her a lesson. You don't even know what she's done? Looks like your apology that day was just a perfunctory one. If that's the case, don't blame me for not sparing your dignity one last time. Samuel's heart was flooded with panic. To his dismay, Lucian had already hung up before he could even ask more questions. Recalling Lucian's words, Samuel flew into a rage. Aubrey again. She has only gone out this morning. What stupid thing has she done this time to make Lucian so mad? Upon hanging up, Samuel stormed up the stairs. Aubrey was sitting in her bedroom, looking grim. As soon as she had contacted the media company, she had gone home and happily watched the drama unfold. Little did she expect the tables to turn again that night. Her face contorted with anger when she saw Farwell Group's new announcement trending. On top of that, the announcement clearly stated it was Aubrey's personality that caused the annulment of the engagement. How could Lucian do this to me? A netizen commented, I've met Aubrey before. Sure enough, she's not all that great. She always looks down on others as if we're inferior to her. Another comment read, I heard Aubrey even scolded the daughter of the Farwell family and called her little mute. Back then, I thought I'd gotten the wrong person because they hadn't called off their engagement yet. Now that I see it, it's definitely Aubrey. No wonder Mr. Farwell wants to renounce the engagement. The more Aubrey read, the darker her expression grew. Everyone, no matter their identity, was stepping out to criticize her. Humph. What do they know? It's all Roxanne's doing. Who knows what she said to Lucian? It's clearly that batch's fault. What right do they have to criticize me? Aubrey was seeing red. Just as she was about to contact the media company to attack Roxanne again, the person in charge beat her to it. You called me at the perfect time. I want you to post the news from this. Before she could even finish, the person on the other end of the line questioned, Miss Pearson, didn't you say our company won't be affected? What's happening now? Aubrey froze for several seconds before frowning. What's wrong? What happened? The person in charge sounded as if he was hiding somewhere. Although his voice was soft, his anger was notable. The assistant of Farwell Group's CEO brought his men to our company and even showed us evidence of our illegal acts from the past. They want to send us to jail. They even seized our company. Suddenly, Aubrey felt a chill run down her spine. The person in charge continued, and now, our company's bankrupt. I've lost all my money. Where's the balance of the 10 million you promised? Transfer it to me now. I'm going to go into hiding with that. Before he could finish, Aubrey hung up. It took her a while to register the fact that Caden had brought his men to the media company. Does that mean Lucian knows it's my doing already? The thought of that possibility made her break out in a cold sweat. Lucian said he wanted to send me to jail for attacking Roxanne earlier. He'll never let me off the hook if he finds out I'm the one behind this again. As she was feeling fearful and uneasy, her broken room door was suddenly pushed open. At that, Aubrey hastily put away her phone and gazed at the door. All she saw was her father marching over with a gloomy expression. Dad. Aubrey was already feeling extremely guilty. Her voice trembled more when she noticed Samuel's expression. Glowering at her, Samuel fumed. What did you do again? Aubrey shuddered, and her subconscious self decided to hide the truth. What are you? To her horror, Samuel grabbed her by the neck and lifted her up from the bed before she could finish. If you did nothing, why would Lucian suddenly tell me to watch you carefully? If you did nothing, why would he suddenly tell me Pearson Group would face worse consequences? Do you take everyone for a fool? Samuel's eyes were bloodshot as rage surged in his heart. Aubrey could barely breathe. Dad, let me go. I was wrong. Samuel was so infuriated that he lost his composure. You imbecile. Didn't I tell you not to mess with Roxanne? Why didn't you listen? Do you want our entire family to pay the price with our lives? Samuel tightened his grip with each second. Aubrey was losing her breath as she struggled, causing her to knock something off the floor, which produced a loud sound. Upon hearing the sound, Gina hurriedly went over to comfort Aubrey as she thought the latter was throwing things out of anger. However, the sight of Samuel strangling Aubrey was what greeted her right after she went through the door. Samuel, what are you doing? Gina's knees went weak for a while before she rushed to them and pried Samuel off of Aubrey. Falling to the floor, Aubrey held her neck while panting heavily. What happened? Wasn't everything fine earlier? Sonia has even agreed to ask Lucian for forgiveness on our behalf. Why did you lose your temper again? Gina questioned in dissatisfaction as her heart broke for her daughter. What did I lose my temper again, you ask? Why don't you ask this imbecile of yours about what she did? Because of her, Lucian's outraged once again. Not to mention Sonia, even Mr. Elias can't save us this time. As Gina heard that, her hand on Aubrey's back froze as she stared at the latter in disbelief. What did you do this time? In a state of frenzy, Aubrey shouted, I didn't do anything wrong. That batch asked for it. She was the one who messed with me first. When her words fell, Samuel slapped her so hard she fell to the floor again. You still show no remorse, huh? You're grounded from now on. Don't even think of stepping foot outside of this house. Wearing a gloomy look, Aubrey held her cheek. Roxanne, that batch. I will never forgive her. Lucian kept his word. He showed Pearson Group no mercy. In just a short period of time, nearly all business partners of Pearson Group put their termination contracts forward on the grounds that the Pearsons might ruin their reputation. Not only could Pearson Group not afford to pay a single penny of the liquidated damages, but they could possibly face a huge sum of compensation as well. That night, the Pearson family members gathered in Samuel's living room. What exactly did Aubrey do to get Farwell Group to target us like this, Samuel? Ask someone who could remain calm, trying to clarify with Samuel to see if there was a way to make things right. However, Samuel was too embarrassed to speak. The members of the Pearson family had not been that supportive of the marriage contract between Aubrey and Lucian. Initially, they welcomed the idea, as they could gain Farwell Group support, but after observing Lucian's attitude in the past few years, they suggested dissolving the marriage contract. After all, they were certain Lucian would not stop supporting them because of the favor he owed old Mr. Pearson. If they delayed further, Lucian's patience might run thin. Even so, Samuel and his family did not believe it as they clung to hope, only to backfire when the prophecy came true. Farwell Group ruthlessly oppressed Pearson Group as a result of a falling out. This is all your fault. Someone scolded. What do you plan to do now? Forcing a smile, Samuel replied, I'll ask Aubrey to come here now so she can apologize to all of you. As his words fell, Gina quickly had someone call Aubrey to the living room. Coming down the stairs, Aubrey spotted her father surrounded by the other relatives pointing their fingers at him and questioning him. What are you guys doing? Aubrey asked after seeing the scene. In the entire Pearson family, their family was the superior one. They had never received such treatment. Hearing her voice, everyone turned to look at her. You still have the guts to question us, huh? You know, had you not offended Lucian, our family would not have been like this right now. Old Mr. Pearson established Pearson Group all by himself. It's not something you can toy with. You're the one who messed up, but why do we have to bear the consequences as well? Aubrey appeared in a wretched state as her cheek was still swollen, and Samuel's handprint did not fade. Aubrey was so infuriated that her hand started trembling. Oh, we're talking about that now, are we? Didn't all of you also bask in the glory when Pearson Group was at its peak? If not for the marriage contract between Lucian and me, there's no way Pearson Group would have been that magnificent. Yet, here they are, making all this noise. Everyone exchanged glances, not knowing how to retort. As for Samuel, he could finally heave a sigh of relief, but he still felt as if his family was at fault, so he stood in the middle of the room while wearing an unpleasant expression. Aubrey, apologize to everyone right now. Why should I? I didn't do anything wrong. Aubrey retaliated. Did they thank us when they enjoyed the things we achieved? These hypocrites are disgusting. Aubrey's words hit them like a truck as they stared at each other. After some time, someone finally uttered, the most important thing right now is to come up with a solution to this crisis. Bickering like this won't get us anywhere. That's right. We aren't here to bicker. We're here so everyone could think of something to solve this issue. Another one quickly agreed. Taking a seat on the couch tiredly, Samuel asked, so what solution have you thought of? There was no way Lucian would let go of any Pearsons. As Samuel had handled this all day long, he had no energy left. The living room went pin-drop silent again. All of a sudden, one of them muttered, "A Farwell Group is targeting you. We're not the ones who crossed them. If you're willing to give up your right to manage the company and withdraw as the head of the authority, Farwell Group will probably be a bit lenient toward us." In an instant, the others voiced their agreement. We don't have anything against you managing the company, but what he said makes sense. If you're not willing to do that, all of us will go down with you. As long as Pearson Group stands, you will always have food on your table. Everyone spoke one after another as though Samuel and his family were some sort of sinners. Samuel had his head down, unable to rebuke. The others' behaviors enraged Aubrey as she bellowed, shut up. Who do you think you are? You're just a bunch of hypocrites. How dare you point your fingers at us?" Staring at her, everyone went silent, but they knew Samuel would do as they said. Aubrey looked at her father, about to ask him to reject their ideas. However, before she could say anything, Samuel stated, "Understood. I'll do as you suggested. I'm willing to let go of some of my shares."
Thank you for listening. If you have enjoyed this story, please like and share so others can see it too. Also hit the subscription button and notification bell so you can be notified on our next release. Thank you for your support. God bless you.